So welcome everybody. Welcome to Reco12. My name is Lisa S and I have the disease of alcoholism. So we'll begin with a moment's silence for the addict who inside and outside the Zoom rooms are still suffering, followed by the set aside prayer. Please set aside anything we think we know about ourselves, about our disease, about the big book, the 12 steps, the program, the fellowship, the people in the fellowship, and all spiritual terms, especially you, God, so that we may have an open mind and a new experience with all these things. Please help us to see the truth. We surrender this next hour to you. Your will, not ours, be done. Amen. So I'm very blessed to be the host of this Afro-Euro speaker meeting, and it is in the Afro and Euro time zones, although everyone is welcome, all inclusive. We all have one common peril and there's one solution, and that's the 12 steps. So it is, at the moment, it's 8 a.m. UK time, 10 a.m. European and South African time. Next week, we are changing the times to 12 p.m. UK time, midday, which will be 2 p.m. African and European time. So I'm really excited about that, guys. So Reco12 is an organisation with the mission of learning and sharing the similarities of addiction of all kinds, and gaining and sharing tools and hope from others who are walking a similar path. We come together from all places, faiths and backgrounds to gain tools and hope from others. We are represented by many fellowships, addictions and afflictions, and we look forward to continuing to add to the diversity of speakers and backgrounds. And I hope you'll reach out if your experience, strength and hope will benefit this special community. Today's speaker is Tim, who I'm very excited to listen to. He'll be speaking around 30 minutes, and then we'll get you guys to come in with any questions and Tim can answer. Or if you've got any questions during the share, just pop them in the chat. If you don't want to come in yourselves, and if you want to be anonymous, just put it in the chat, anonymous, and I will read them out for you. So the Reco12 family of recovery resources continues to grow and has more and more resources for the addict and the loved ones of those addicted. Reco12 shares and a couple of other super exciting projects. Another project is the Big Book Roundtable, which is also all on the Reco12 resources, where we have David G and Nikki M and Justin B, who discuss word by word, line by line, going through the big book. That is on a weekly recording. Tradition 7, Reco12 is a self-supporting service, and we appreciate your help in keeping us working our step 12 in this manner. We gratefully accept one-time contributions to PayPal, Venmo, and Wise. And I'll pop all that in the links in the chat. It's also on all the show notes on the Reco12 resources on the community. We also offer a monthly subscription program called Reco12 Spearheads. To join in and help support those cool projects, please consider donating at www.reco.com/support, or click on the link in the chat of the live meeting. We look forward each meeting to growing deeper in effectiveness and understanding as we learn from and with our special speakers. And today we are so blessed to have Tim, who's going to talk on codependency and addiction, and talking about the 5 petals of his codependency: avoidance, low self-esteem, pleasing, denial, controlling the uncontrollable. So with great pleasure, over to you, Tim.
Thank you, Lisa. Good morning, everyone. My name is Tim. Yeah, if I have to say, I'm an alcoholic, I'm an addict, I'm a codependent. Depends on the meeting where I go to, and there I identify as an alcoholic if it's an AA meeting, but I'll get to that in a minute. Thank you for having me, Lisa. And I love to hear about this Big Book Roundtable. makes me want to come. Sorry for the background noise. I hope it's not too much because I'm at quite a busy road. So yeah, thanks for having me. I'll maybe start how it was and then what happened. So I'm now soon to be 50 years old, which already is a miracle, I think. I'm the youngest of six, grown up in a family quite dysfunctional. I heard a fellow once say, I'm from a regular family, dysfunctional. I haven't met any families that are perfect, but there might be. My dad was an alcoholic. My father's side, very emotional, how do you say, frozen family, no affection there. My mom's side, big family, a lot of dysfunctionality, a lot of alcoholism. There were 12 siblings there, so it's still to this day interesting to see how everybody is playing his or her role in these patterns that have developed, growing up. I used to do sports, swimming, quite intensively, competition. So that was my life until I was like 15. But I noticed already, growing up as the youngest of a family, I have 4 brothers, looked up to them, wanting to have their attention, watching that I wasn't bullied. So it has been from the start, I think, already, if I think back now, a place where I had to be awake, to see where do I get my attention, where do I get love, because my father was not able, because he was an alcoholic, to really give love, show affection. So he couldn't, and I understand now. He also passed away from a disease, at the age of 66, which is a shame because I did not find the solution that I was able to find, with Big Book Recovery. Let's see that don't go all around over the place. So as a kid already growing up, I noticed I had to, put on different masks, and see that I could find my way, not to be bullied by my brothers, to get attention. So I was already from a young age, a very good people pleaser. I've not identified, but I learned that that I'm quite a sensitive person, a lot of antennas. So I get easily stimulated. I don't know what the word is in English. I look at it now as a positive thing, I just have to make sure that my surroundings and I take care of myself in a good way. And then I look at it as a positive thing. I stopped the swimming competition, when I was 15 years old. I always said I will never drink. I never want to become like my dad. And I really meant that. And then I drank for the first time when I was 15. I think I had 5 or 7 beers. Had to throw up all night. I think that was already the first time from my higher power or God telling me maybe that's not the best idea to drink. I did not listen to that.
Got questions about addiction, recovery, or just life in general? Let's noodle it out together. Grab your big book, a pen, a highlighter, and a notepad, and join Nikki M and me, Justin B, on Reco12 Noodle It Out with Nikki M. Each episode, we take real-life questions, ours, yours, and those from the recovery community, and dig deep into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous to find real, practical solutions. So, if you're ready to do the work and apply the solution, tune in to Noodle It Out with Nikki M, streaming now on your favorite podcast platform.
But I do remember that, it for me, alcohol really was a solution. Why? It took really the edge off, I could be more comfortable with myself. And it started with going out, drinking. And because I was realizing now I had such a low self-esteem, I did not really know who I was, what was my identity. So alcohol became my identity, Look how much I can drink, I became fatter and fatter because I drank a lot, I ate a lot. For me, it's not about alcohol or drugs. I can fill myself with food, with porn, with attention, with resentment, with fear. Anything that blocks me or that takes myself out of myself, is okay. So I can don't have to feel, I think that was the big challenge growing up, feeling. Also to really connect with for me, females, I was always too scared. Or I was, when I drank alcohol, that worked, then I could really open up and tell somebody how I felt. But I hurt a lot of people with that. But I'll first talk more about the addiction part, So drinking evolved. When I was 21, I weighed 105 kilos. I developed gout. I think that was a second sign from God telling me, maybe not such a good idea to drink alcohol. Went to the doctor and he said, yeah, you can choose, or you stop drinking, or you take medication. I said, no, I'm not going to take medication. So I stopped drinking, but I started smoking weed. And I remember my words. I said, I do need to have something, to cope with life. So I started smoking weed, lost some weight, and then started drinking again. I always said, I'll never do cocaine, I'll never do ecstasy because it's probably too good. And when I start, I won't be able to stop. And that's exactly what happened when I was, 22, to cocaine the first time. Yeah, and that was like, wow. Now I don't have to go home anymore. I don't have to stop drinking. I could just keep on going. And ecstasy, yeah, and all the drugs, I used to call it, I would identify as a techno guy, partying, and I would go to football matches. I've built this whole identity to inflate my ego, because deep down inside, I was not feeling good enough. I think that's the basis of it all. I don't want to talk too much about the drinking and the drugging. Everybody knows how to do that. That developed, and my bottom was when I was 35. There have been periods where I was able to stop for a while because I had a car accident, because I wound up in hospital, and out of fear, and fear is also definitely a big part of my life, out of fear, I would stop for a while. But I would not have any tools to stay stopped, and I would forget, what the problem was, and I would fill myself with other things, chasing women, attention, eating. And when I was 35, I went on a skiing holiday. It's better called a drinking holiday. I relapsed with cocaine before. So for me, my two combination was alcohol and cocaine. And then I went 10 days on a drinking holiday. And then when I got back, I got anxiety attacks. It was like the walls were moving. I thought, probably just a couple of days, and then it will get back to normal. Interesting word. Which it didn't. Had to go to psychiatrist. He said, yeah, you have brain damage because of alcohol and drug abuse. And I was like, I thought that only happened to other people, that it didn't happen to me. It's like watching all these movies of people getting paranoid. Oh, no, that's not for me, that's for other people. I also had my bout with that, paranoid and stuff. And I noticed once I got that, there was no coming back. It's still something that, it's not something that I can undo. Anyhow, I had these brain damage issues, and now God definitely got my attention. And I think that was really the time when God said, bam, pounding my head on the concrete floor, saying, do I have your attention now? Had to stop working, had to come back. I lived abroad, worked as a holiday rep, had to come back because I developed, first had to take medication, antipsychotic, then I was able to go a month later. Had to come back because I developed suicidal thoughts, and this was the opposite of what I was like before, I didn't believe in God, but I did pray and begged for, please give me a solution to take care of this. It took 10 months for the beginning to find somebody that had experience with it. It was derealization, depersonalization. Long story short, I got through the physical part, and that was like, wow, I'm so grateful still today that I was able to continue my life, because I really thought that my life was done. I asked for euthanasia at a psychiatrist and stuff because I did not want my mom to find me and not to kill myself. And if I tell that now, I'm like, wow, I cannot imagine anymore how that was, but it's good to mention it. So I really thought it was over, but it wasn't. And that's where I first then, so my sobriety date was 15 February, or still is, 15 February 2012. Not to brag that I'm 14 years sober, because I don't think it means shit how long that I'm sober. It depends on the time. What I do with the time that I'm sober, sorry for my swearing. So I went first time to a Flemish AA meeting. Flemish AA is a bit different. And again, this is all just my own experience. A lot of the Flemish AA meetings kind of diluted the program, you know. But I went there and people were talking about their drinking. But I thought that's okay. That's the way it is, you know. And in the beginning, I was just happy to be there. Later, I went to a treatment center where 80% of the people did not want to be there. That was also an interesting concept. That had more to do with making money. There I got to know NA meetings, which for me really helped to, was more of an upgrade. And again, my own experience, because I talked more about recovery, more young people. But still for me, when I came back to Belgium, I went to those meetings and it was more talking about my problems, you know. What's my problem? And I love to talk about my problems in the beginning. I had a lot of self-pity, you know, a lot of victimhood because I have this brain damage. And why did this happen to me? And and then people could pat me on the back, and ideal place for my codependency. Again, I'm grateful now that NA exists. I'm grateful that Flemish AA exists. It's none of my business, you know. Everybody can choose for themselves what they want to do. Later, I moved back to where I lived, you know, abroad in Spain. And then there was an AA international meeting, you know, and they really talked about Big Book and about steps and about all that stuff. And I already had a sponsor, you know, and I worked the steps in NA, but it went very slowly, you know. My sponsor said 1 step a year. If I look back now, you know, for me, that's madness, you know. I didn't also go to the bar and ask 1 beer and came back a couple of months later. For me, I really like... Big Book recovery, you know. And that's the first time I really got to know the Big Book. And at the same time, when I went to these meetings, I really was already a couple of years physically sober. That's what I mean. It's not so important how long that I'm sober, because I can be a dry drunk and full of fear, full of obsession. So I lived abroad, beautiful place, surfing, sunshine, and I was still full of fear, full of obsession. And I was so occupied with other people, you know. I was in a relationship back then. And I was so obsessed with a colleague of mine, you know, calling her. And I know I did not want a relationship with her, but I wanted her attention. And that has definitely been a pattern, you know, always looking outside myself, you know, for attention, mostly with females, you know, because my low self-esteem was so low that I would look for validation, you know, outside myself. And that was a bit at the same time that I was attending these English-speaking meetings, had a sponsor there. And I would also go, when I hit that bottom, I think I have like a couple of bottoms. First, I had this bottom with the codependency, and I spoke to this counselor I was attending back in the day, and she introduced me to ACA. She gave me a laundry list, Adult Children of Alcoholics, for people who don't know it. And I had no idea, Anonymous. That is actually my program, you know. I have no idea about most stuff. I think that's the best mindset that I could have. But of course, I thought other ways, you know. She introduced me to this laundry list, you know, with characteristics where there is to be an adult child. And the first time I heard that, it was like, ooh, I have to swallow. I'm still a child in some regards. And I definitely was. And at the same time, so I was shopping a bit. I was doing a bit of NA, doing a bit of AA, doing a bit of ACA. And my sponsor there said, I cannot work with you anymore, you know. You're running your own show. Maybe you should try try some controlled drinking at the bar. And I was like, oh. So I was like, F you, and how do you think, how dare you? But I'm so grateful that he did put me in my place, you know. And the next day I attended a meeting there. It was a big book study meeting, and he talked more about alcoholism, and I got really paranoid, you know. I thought, oh, they're talking about me. And I thought, of course they're talking about me, because it's about alcoholism, you know. And that was the first time I really could admit to my innermost self that I was a real alcoholic, you know, like it mentions in the big book, What About a Real Alcoholic? And that was the first time it felt very uncomfortable. I was able to be honest and say, I feel so uncomfortable now, and because I had to admit. But that was also the big change, you know. I was 4 years sober, and that was the first time I could really admit the first part of the step 1, you know, that I was powerless over alcohol and life and people, that my life was unmanageable. That was kind of clear with the brain damage and everything. But my ego was still, you know, or my disease, maybe you're different. I would think that I was unique. I would come to meetings. I would think, yeah, maybe I'm different. Maybe I can think myself out of this, which is hilarious. So I got a new sponsor there, which is still my sponsor today, a guy from Leeds. Love him. And he took me to the steps. And what also really helped me, another fellow there, he introduced me to speaker tapes of Joe and Charlie, two old members who have passed away now from AA, who really did do master classes, I think you would call it now today, about alcoholism, and I listened to that, read the big book, highlighted, spoke to my sponsor, went through it, and that really helped me to understand more the program, because they explain it in a very simple way, also a very with a lot of humor, and that's also important for me to laugh with myself, because I think I'm so great and my ego takes me places, but I'm just an alcoholic, which is great. And that really helped me going within through the steps, and most steps, once I could really admit to myself and I understood what the disease of alcoholism or addiction. I attend now AA, my home group is an AA International meeting in Holland, and I also attend and do service in CA Belgium, which is quite new, we just set up an area, and now after this meeting, we go to the bookkeeper to lay down the bylaws, and we will have a non-profit. So it's beautiful to see how CA is growing and how everybody's helping. And I had no idea that my life could develop in that kind of way. But coming back to step one, to understand the threefoldness of the disease, that first of all, that I have no control over the amount of alcohol that I take in once I start taking the first drink, and that I'm really powerless, that I have this reverse allergy that really helped me, it's an allergy, and that when I start, I cannot stop drinking, because I never understood why I could not stop drinking and drugging. And I would think, because in other regards, I would think I'm regular IQ, has nothing to do with IQ, but I could never understand why I could not stop drinking. That explained it to me, and then the biggest part of me was this obsession of the mind, that I really have a thinking problem, and it's really a thinking disease. And that really helped me a lot, and still helps a lot today, that my thinking, if I'm left on my own, is not really to be trusted, But my thinking does not say, Tim, your thinking is very sick, It says your thinking is very healthy. Maybe that's a good idea, And then these ideas maybe bring me into trouble. So that was really, I think, the biggest part. And then beneath that I was this sort of spiritual melody. And if I would hear these words in the beginning, it was like, oh, or the feeling that I'm not good enough, And I could also really identify with that, And going through the rest of the steps, step two, that I can choose my own concept of God. Wow, I love that part, I can change God for program. It's all about willingness, how willing am I to do this stuff? How willing was I when I was drinking and drugging, I have no problem getting on my knees, throwing up all night, hugging the toilet seat, but getting on my knees and asking God for help and admitting that I'm an alcoholic and surrendering to the program. I like this part, my perception needs to change. Step three, that my will and my life is my thinking and my actions. My thinking and my actions, that needs help, Rest of the steps, my character defects in step 5, and step four for me also had to explain, what a resentment is, fear is, my sexual conduct. Anyhow, 12 minutes, so I still need to get going for the codependency part. When I got these character defects, coping mechanisms, survival techniques I learned growing up, being a youngster, and then being an alcoholic, they're all based around fear. And they all boil down to one thing, which is low self-esteem, in my experience, whether it was manipulating, approval seeking, bullying, feelings of superiority, inferiority, lying, dishonesty. A lot of words have changed also in my recovery, I thought I was an honest person, but I really had no idea what the word honesty really meant. Because I thought it's just blank lying, No, if somebody asks me, how are you doing? And I'm not being honest, then I'm also just lying, Anyhow, it all boiled down to this low self-esteem part. And the codependency was also written by my sponsor there. And he told me, make AA, big book. For me, it's AA or big book, because CA, AA, I do the same. But for me, it's the big book recovery that really works for me. That's my base. He told me, make that your base. And from there out, you can do other stuff, Because if I relapse, everything is gone, I cannot keep on recovering and learning. So that's my base, I have a sponsor there, I do service there. I have now the pleasure to work with sponsees in an equal basis, not in a superiority. That was also in the beginning, I'm a sponsor now, I'll tell them what to do, Great practice ground to deal with control issues. That was also, and still is, one of my interesting coping mechanisms. Anyhow, he gave me a book. Can I also mention literature outside of 12-step recovery? Yeah. So he introduced me to a book from Melody Beattie, which is quite a known person within the codependency world, Codependent No More. And that was really like an eye-opener, like, wow, I could really identify a lot. Because definitely also as a man, I cannot speak for women, of course, I felt like a weakling, being so codependent, being sensitive, I could watch movies and start crying. And now I love it, because I can feel music, or I can feel what's going on in the movie. In the beginning, and definitely growing up drinking and drinking, I was like, oh no, I need to be a tough guy. So I would still struggle with that, first connected with that, and then after, I don't know, 8 years in sobriety, so the sobriety, the physical staying clear of alcohol and drugs, that was okay. But I would still get completely caught up in my codependency. Met my today wife, and we got into kind of a turbulent relationship. There was a connection all along, but we would trigger each other. I would call it a trigger festival. Tick, 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 tick. And I spoke to her, which is hilarious. You maybe should do CODA meetings, This will help you, So tell her what she needs to do. And she did. And she started working the steps, and she started recovering. And she would set boundaries. And I was like, I need to also step up my game, And then I also went to CODA meetings, finally got a sponsor there, and worked these steps. And that really helped me. I really needed that. Some people say, 12 steps of big book take away everything. And that's great, if that works for other people. For me, I really needed another program. For me, CODA has done the job, and still today. And there's still a lot more work to be done, or more growth to be attained, hopefully. I really needed that, to first see where my codependency came from. And I love the CODA program. It's with a workbook, and it's step 1 and tradition 1. And it goes through the 12 steps and 12 traditions, because these traditions really help me also. How do I deal with other people? I think that's my main issues, The only requirement for membership within CODA is the desire for healthy and loving relationships with myself and other people. And I think that was the first part, how was the relationship with myself, How do I talk with myself? And honestly, I had no idea who I was, I would have this fabricated identity, which I understand now, growing up and then becoming an alcoholic and drugging and dealing with life. That program really helped me in step 1. Where does it come from, It came from where I grew up, and without doing the blame game. My parents did the best they can. It's where I grew up. It's okay. But really to see, okay, it's not something, that I can blame myself for, I can take responsibility and grow out of it, and do these steps. But that really helped me a lot, step 1 in CODA, to identify what is codependency, where does it come from? And it speaks about these 5 patterns that Lisa mentioned, control, which, interesting, denial, low self-esteem, the avoidance, and the pleasing, I was really a Belgian champion in people pleasing. And now I found out it's really a form of manipulation. I'm manipulating people so they can like me, so I don't feel scared or not good enough about myself. The control, it's interesting how many balls I would keep up in the air. And still today, it's an issue, or a practice ground, And like I mentioned, service is great, Sponsors is great to deal with control, to be honest, to learn to set healthy boundaries, and also avoidance. And in the beginning, a lot of these patterns, they also have like 40, a lot of characteristics in CODA to see, is it something for me, do I identify? And some of these patterns, I said, no, that's not me, And I'm like, oh yeah, I also have that, It's the same like in the beginning, going to AA meetings, but I'm not really completely alcoholic. Everybody knew that I was an alcoholic. I'm the only one that was still in denial, It's hilarious. And that for me is the thinking part of my mind, My mind can convince me from things that is, If I go to a football game, it's 5-0, it's 5-0. My mind would say, yeah, maybe we're still 1-0, 2 or something. It's really hilarious. And there I see that for myself, I really need to, on a daily basis, practice this, how do you say, spirituality. What is spirituality? I have no idea. It's definitely the opposite of drinking and drugging. I've always been looking for God, as I identify God. I have no fear anymore to call it God because I can choose my own concept, It says it's a spiritual program, not a religious one. So then I have to believe it, It has nothing to do with church. Okay, then I can surrender. I can choose my own concept. Perfect for me. It's everything, nature, the world, people. And I have to practice that on a daily basis. Why? Because for me, what also my sponsor told me once, the ism for alcoholism stands for incredible short memory. And I forget, 9 days, I think, is like my barrier. If I don't connect with my sponsor, then I can get a bit more cocky and I don't notice it, And then I speak to my sponsor and I think, oh, what do I have to say? And then I talk to him and it's like, blah, 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 blah. And I can keep going. It's to ventilate, I don't ventilate at a meeting, In the beginning I would throw up in a meeting, verbal vomit with a lot of people. And I would feel good for 5 minutes. I was at a meeting this week, and some people did, and I felt so, I go to a meeting to get solution, If I'm a newcomer and I come at a meeting, I want to see happy people, and I want to see something that would give me the motivation to do this stuff, Otherwise I can just go back out and kill myself slowly with drinking and drugging, I hope I'm not going up and about. So this codependency, step 1 was very important for me. Rest of the steps and traditions also. And step 4 was a big part of who I am today. It really helped me to understand where the problem was for me and what is codependency. The effect was, I lost so much time with it. And because of this, I was very dishonest. I was not able to be honest. And out of that, I made myself fearful and resentment, and I made other people fearful and resentment. I cut myself short or sold myself short. I don't know how you say it in English. So people did not really get to know me, and I did not get to know myself. And it really helped me to, develop for myself. Who am I, what are my ethics, who do I want to be? Of course, it's not perfect. Falling and getting up, a trial and error. Step 9 was also a big one. That's where really the one where I made amends to myself also, and also with God. In AA for me, it was different. I think in addiction, I make amends to myself by making amends to other people. First clear up all the wreckage that I caused, and I make amends to myself by cleaning that all up, But CODA for me really is a program where I really get to look at myself in a loving way, and I really needed that, to really grow into a man. That was also a big part, still a little boy behavior, to really grow in a man. And I've done stuff outside of 12 steps also, to keep looking at myself, to become the best version possible, because every day is a bonus day. And in the morning, going back to the spiritual fitness, I have my morning ritual, and I'll share it. Maybe it helps for other people. I do 10 breaths, to wake up. I do some reading, daily readings, daily reflections, Melody BT, but I change it every year. I journal a little bit, helps me to order my thoughts, and then I get down on my knees for some praying. Once I started doing that, I think after 6 or 7 years, it really changed, but I resisted it, which is hilarious, Why do I resist stuff that is good for me? I think that's also a big part of my disease, Whenever now I resist stuff, it's like, oh, maybe there's something to learn. And why do I get on my knees? It's the admission every day I have no control over other people. I have no control over the outside world. And I'm still an alcoholic, to remind myself, that, how did somebody say, the one with the most sobriety is the one that got up earliest this morning. That is just about today, and I need that stuff, to keep my ego, to keep me right-sized. I pray and then I meditate. I found the meditation that works for me. Transcendent meditation sounds woo, but it's just with one word, But there's a big buffet. And hopefully, normally in the afternoon, I do another meditation. In the evening, I check in again. And that helps me, to, my life has never been better. I'm married now. to this lady where I had this trigger festival relationship with, that's something I would never get married. I would never have kids. She has 4 kids, so I have 4, how do you say, stepkids now, and I can really love them, which is also new. Before I would run away, and they also love me. And I notice now also with the codependency, a lot of people, I notice within addiction, of men and women, struggle with it. I think it's a codependent society, I think, especially with all the social media. So I think it's, for me, really the combination really helped and has helped me to grow. And I needed that to really get out of the dysfunctional thinking and feeling good about myself in a humble way. I can talk about this stuff for hours, but I see that my time is ticking off. So I'll stop early. I'll shut up with this. Thank you all for listening. And I wish you all a very good day.
Hey Spearheads, if you're looking to dive deeper into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous with people who live the solution, then you won't want to miss Reco12 Big Book Roundtable. Join David G., Nikki M., and me, the moderator Justin B., 3 recovered addicts from multiple fellowships, as we break down the big book line by line. In each 30-minute episode, we share our experience, strength, and hope in a real, raw, and practical roundtable discussion. So, if you are ready to learn and apply what you learn, tune in to Reco12 Big Book Roundtable on your favorite podcast platform.
Thank you so much, Tim. Do you know what? I was really looking forward to this because I've actually not heard of the 5 petals before, so I was really interested, and it was so interesting to hear. And and the codependency and the addiction is so entwined, isn't it? So a question from me. When you said about the Flemish AA, I've never heard of that. Can you explain a little bit about that, Tim?
It's Flemish because I live in Belgium and you have Flanders, so it's the Flemish. So it's the Dutch-speaking part of Belgium. And they're in I don't know for the French-speaking part, but it kind of developed in a different way, They made their own little book. They kept the word God as much out of it. So it's, and again, this is my own experience. And if there's Belgian people there who love Flemish AA, I apologize. It's just my opinion. But it kind of diluted the program, So they don't talk, they don't really do steps, they don't do eventually. You talk about the step and then you've done the steps. There are also some good Flemish AA meetings. That's not all bad, but the meetings I went to had nothing to do with AA as I know the program, solution, spiritual experience, and then recovering and passing it on. So it was, a very diluted, but I understand that it has developed that way. Apparently it was introduced by a Flemish doctor or a Dutch doctor, and it was developed by a non-alcoholic. Back in the day, the guy went to the States, got back here, and then wrote his booklet himself, and then tried to, in good intentions, try to help Flemish and Dutch people. But of course, being a good alcoholic, I prefer the easier, softer way. Of course, it's not the easier, softer way because I'll still be full of resentment and full of fear. That's what I mean with Flemish AA. It's just that part here. But there's also some good meetings, and that's why I love CA Belgium. It started now 5 years ago. We became an area in September or August. I think we really fill a void, between NA, which is a slower process to go through the steps, or you really have to go for it, and Flemish AA, which is like 80% guessing, is different. And I think CA, we really have the mentality like originated, big book recovery, bam, you get in, I'm powerless, you get a sponsor, you go through the steps. And I think until now, we really have, we grew from 7 meetings to 13 now in 6-7 months. So there's really need for it also. Really have and a lot, what I like about Cocaine Anonymous, it's for everything. The name is, of course, thinks, it's only for cocaine, but it really is for alcohol, drugs. We also sometimes have some sex addicts or gamblers, which is difficult or more challenging, I think. I'll shut up, otherwise I'll keep on.
No, that's really interesting. And it's funny, isn't it, how you say it was diluted. and then obviously struggling is so important that we don't dilute this message. And I guess that leads me on to the other question. When you said you do CODA as well as AA and CA, so does CODA do the steps differently to AA and CA, or is it the same?
It's the same principle, but it's a completely different program. And in all honesty, I did the steps there, did service, we started meetings, we made ourselves part of the area. And I kind of, after a couple of years, let go. Why? Because it's difficult to find people who stick to the program and go through the steps. So I only had one sponsor that really finished the program, but then use it for other reasons also. People don't do that much service, so it's really a very small program. And they also say in CODA, take all the time you want. For me, that doesn't work. So when I do work with sponsors, it's like, okay, we're going to have this rhythm, and they don't have to agree, or you can also get another sponsor. But now I notice I've, again, a couple of sponsees, but I need to get back to a meeting, need to get back to a sponsor, but I really feel there's a need for it. But coming back to your questions, it's different in the way that big book, you don't really need questions. It's just a big book. If you really go back to the core of it, you read the book or your sponsor gets you to the steps. There's also questions if you want. And with the CODA program, you really have like a working book, and step one, you have several questions. And also they also have a big book. There are some questions in there. Tradition one, there are questions. So it's a pretty straightforward program, which I like. The challenge there is to find the sponsor. But in the States, they have a lot of meetings, I think in UK as well. And they also have like these step working groups that you do it with other people. I like sponsor. Why? So I can talk to somebody who has gone through the steps, and has the experience instead of doing it with people. If you have a person that is guiding these step working groups, that might also be a good thing. But I have no experience with these groups. So my experience was with a sponsor. But I did these steps with the sponsor. I think every 1 week or every second week we did a step. First step and the fourth step is a bit more work. But yeah, the word work is also a bit strange. I think that being an active codependent and an active alcoholic is work, doing these steps is quite comfortable.
Yeah. So it must be quite a juggling act doing two it's separate. With when I loved how you said about your step 11, your daily practice with prayer and meditation. And has that changed over the 14 years, Tim? Has it changed over the years? What does that look like? How it's when you first come into the rooms and what it looks like now?
Yeah, it has changed definitely. These first 4 years when I was not really, I was going to meetings, but I was not really in my innermost self admit that I was an alcoholic/addict. I would believe that there was something bigger than me, but I did not surrender, and I would not practice prayer and meditation. And then when I did surrender, 2016, with this other sponsor, then I started developing that. But that has been a development, and I think that's also beautiful, Also the concept, it's none of my business what you think of your higher power, and vice versa. The meditation, I did lots of different stuff, guided meditations. And then I came into these transcendent meditations, which is just like with a mantra, a word that you keep repeating. And there's been some scientific stuff about it, that it really brings the brain waves into the opposite of stress. And that's something that I can use to bring my brain into the opposite of stress. It's an easy manner, but I think there's so much things you can do. And the structure I have now, I've been practicing that for a couple of years. I think last year I stopped getting on my knees. Of course, when I'm abroad on holiday or whatever, it's different, But that really helped me, to connect, I think, to check in every day, to log in into this energy of higher power, God. And of course, every day is different. If I'm really obsessed or something, then the praying is just lip service and it's different. And I first need to do a step 10 and call my sponsor before I can really get into it. But to answer your questions, because I digress a lot, it has changed. But now the last years it's been quite stable. But I did find out lately, I'm also part of a Steel on Steel group, with 4 men to challenge each other. that I wonder, where can I get more? Or not more, of course, where can I get more? Where can I get even a better connection, I still think there's always better ways to get into touch with God, or which is the opposite of my disease.
Hey Reco12 Spearheads, if our recovery resources have helped you, please consider a donation. Your financial support, as well as your word of mouth support, keeps Reco12 running and reaching the man who is still sick. Donate today at reco12.com/support or check the show notes for PayPal and Venmo links. Every contribution helps carry the message. Thanks for being a Reco12 Spearhead.
I have a question here from someone in the room. Would you recommend that a newcomer in Alcoholics Anonymous to complete the 12 steps before attending or fully participating in Co-Dependency Anonymous meeting and steps?
A definite yes. Yeah. I have some people are also asking me to help them with codependency. I think it's also mentioned somewhere in the code literature that definitely first do 12 steps in addiction or AA, big book. Start sponsoring. That would be my suggestion, because that's already a good practice ground to do this stuff. Maybe already attend some meetings, but the steps can be quite, could be a trigger for relapse. That's what it says also in the Coda literature. And of course, me being a newcomer, I want to get fixed today. I want to be healed today. And that could be, a pitfall. So yeah, I would definitely, somebody would ask me, first do the 12 steps, sponsor a little bit, and then after some recovery. They even say a couple of years, but depends situation to situation. But my answer would be yes.
And then following on from that, a question there: does a person need to read the Melanie Beattie book Codependency No More to understand what codependency and CODA is about? Or is it okay just to show up without background knowledge?
It's definitely okay to show up without background knowledge, because at CODA meetings, we only talk about CODA literature, so Melody Beattie is not mentioned there. So it's really outside of CODA, an outside issue, so you definitely don't need to go, and codependency. You can look stuff up on the internet, but you can go to a CODA meeting like you can go. There's no qualification needed. The only requirement is a desire for a healthy and loving relationship with yourself and other people. So that's enough. The difference, if I'm an alcoholic and I go to CODA meetings, and I think some people struggle with that, there's also non-alcoholic and non-addicted people there, and it's a different way of having a meeting. It's very gentle, there's a lot more room. I think people are more comfortable showing their emotions, and it doesn't have to be CODA. I also want to say that, there's CODA, there's ACA, Adult Children of Alcoholics, or Dysfunctional Families. Al-Anon, I've been to all three. They all boil down a bit to the same. It's a bit finding what works for you. I like the CODA program because it's straightforward. We have these questions, we do them. ACA is also a beautiful program, a big book. I'm amazed how many programs evolve around that. Codependency, control. I see my mom, my dad was an alcoholic. She still struggles with all that. She was not able to go. I only told her 5,000 times to go to an Al-Anon meeting. That was maybe my control. She went a couple of times. She did not find a solution, but I still see today that she's struggling with these patterns of growing up with an alcoholic. So it's not just addicts or alcoholics ourselves, but people who have been involved with the disease, family disease of addiction. And even non-alcoholic people, people who got verbally abused, who got emotionally, not taken care of growing up. So it's interesting.
Yeah, thank you so much for that, Tim. And do you know what? I agree. And my sponsor, she said to me, you are codependent. I thought, what do you mean? And she said, we're all codependent, whether it's, a minute amount or some more than others, but we all are codependent to a certain degree. And it's so true. And again, like you said, it's so entwined with Alcoholics Anonymous and Cocaine Anonymous and all the fellowships. And that's what I loved when you said, the big with the other literature was been mentioned, and the big book is the most important with our basic 12 steps, and then all the other literature is to whatever you want to do as an additional thing, isn't it? So I love that you said that, Tim. One last question from me before we wrap up. What would you say to any newcomer, Tim, or anyone struggling at the minute?
Oh, depends what your problem is, but if it's alcohol or if it's drugs, I love the big book. It's really understand what the problem is, That for me was the biggest part. What is alcoholism, I thought it was just about I drank too much or I take too much drugs, but it mentioned like in the book, it's just a symptom, I use that to cover stuff up, for me, my codependency and my low self-esteem. So it's, if I don't want to continue, surrender, find a program that works, AA or CA, get a sponsor. I think that's the biggest part, and go through the steps. I tell newcomers, and if they want to change their life, just surrender to yourself like you did to drugs and alcohol. Do these 12 steps. If it doesn't work, you can always go back to drinking and drugging. That will always be there. But chances are, if they do surrender, they'll have a different life. I haven't met anyone who has been willing, open-minded, and what's the other one? Open-mindedness, willingness, and honesty.
Honesty.
Who have gone through the steps, whose life hasn't changed massively for the positive, So there's probably people, but I have not met them.
Definitely, it does work. It really does. The 12 steps, and like we've all tried everything and anything before, and the 12 steps really is the answer, for me anyway. So thank you again, Tim. It was such a great Reco12 speaker meeting for all addicts and their loved ones. If we didn't get to any questions, or if you have any other questions, please consider joining our WhatsApp community by sending an email to reco12pod@gmail.com. I popped that in the chat there if anyone wants to copy it and join in our community and ask those questions. Also, the same email address if you'd like to be a future speaker on Reco12 Afro-Euro. Send an email to that same address. If you've not yet rated and reviewed the podcast in Apple Podcasts, please, you can go on there and do so. It's a great way to work step 12 in sharing this message with others. And I invite you all back next week with our new time schedule and another great speaker. We have John E. from the Netherlands next week. I'm really excited about that. So before we get to the rest of our day, if I can ask you, Tim, to send us out on a prayer, my love.
Thank you, Lisa. I thought maybe use the ACA as the prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the people I cannot change, the courage to change the one I can, and the wisdom to know that one is me.
Oh, man. So there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find God now. Stick and stay, guys. And when you do, come all the way in, sit all the way down. Let's trudge this road of happy destiny together. Work it. You are worth it.